We have been playing Genshin Impact since day one, and we've been making a lot of content on it. So I want to go over all of my most used characters. It's not going to be a build guide or anything, but all my most used characters for you guys, so you can get an oversee of the account, different weapons, artifacts, all of that cool stuff as we sort of love a little bit of Genshin Impact here on this channel. So the first one that we're going to be going over is everyone's mainstay. We know it. Day one, we were a Noelle main. Now I'm going to have a dedicated video coming out, you know, Monday, Sunday, Tuesday, something like that this week for Noelle. It's gonna be the final Noelle build guide, all secrets revealed, all the dragon strikes. Yes, you can still do that. Full footstools, all of that stuff. We're gonna have it for you guys. But this is gonna be my biggest whaled out 4-star character because Redhorn Stone Thresher is here. Now I love this character. There's a lot of ways you can utilize this character. She's gotten actually indirectly buffed over time with new artifact sets coming out that kind of directly buff her, with Opulent Dreams being geo-focused and defense-focused, and she's a defense-focused geo character. Go figure. And we had new characters over time that came out like Albedo, who we'll touch on a little bit after this, and then namely Yunjin and Goro were two big ones, especially Yunjin buffing up Noelle's giant normal attacks. Well, let's touch on Noelle. Let's look at her build real quick here. So I love this character. She's sweet, and yes, I'm gonna get flayed for this. Oh, actually I did 13 it. This was plus 12 for the longest time instead of 13, but you can hit giant attack numbers with this character. Our artifact stats and sets, dude, our total stats, 72 crit chance, 230 crit damage, and this is coming majority from our artifact sets that we farmed up. I finally got a good circlet for her. Crit rate main stat, 30 crit damage substat with 5.8% defense, and then a tiny amount of flat attack, which this HP percent was like energy recharge maybe, or flat defense could be a possibility there. I'm sure someone's got an even better circlet than me, but we have this circlet there for her. We have this old mainstay geo damage bonus goblet. We could get a better one with defense instead of attack percent, but you know what? It's pretty good. Then our sands here, 13 crit damage, 9 crit rate, defense main, a little bit of HP sub and some defense flat. Our feather, 10 defense, 10 crit rate, 13 crit damage. And our flower here, 12 crit rate, 15 crit damage, 7 defense, and a little bit of energy recharge. I love using this character. You've probably seen me use this character a bajillion times already. And I can't say much more other than I love Noelle. If I need to beat something with my eyes closed, I throw her in there, whether it's with a mono geo team focused with Yunjin, or if I just do Yunjin and Noelle together so I have geo resonance, and then utilize her with something like Raiden Shogun or Yelan, or just anything pretty much in the game. You could use her for the sole focus of your team, where you just build her up over time and try to get as much damage out of her as possible. You can use her for a driver for a lot of teams. I've used her just with Noelle in a Nahida, Raiden, Shogun, Yelan sort of weird hyper bloom geo Noelle still there healing everyone for the team thing. There's a lot of cool stuff, but I want to move away from this character because I'm going to have a lot of cool stuff to talk about with her showcase wise, with her ascension nice and clean and devotion in a featured video just for her. Now, one of my newest characters that I got built, you can check out the video for that, is actually Shenhe. I had her for a while. I didn't build her, and well, once I built her, my Ganyu got so much better than before, which we'll touch on in a second because she is Constellation 6. And then my Ayaka, who is a character that I wanted to leave at C0 so I could be, you know, relatable. I could be a relatable content creator over here. But yeah, C0 and then Miss Splitter at R1 so I could be a relatable 5-star C0, R1, whatever content creator. This feels like a Seed 17 character with Shenhe built now. Shenhe is just an absolutely insane character. I don't have her weapon though. I actually steal Engulfing Lightning from Raiden Shogun when I use her because it gives me the energy recharge that I need, because she does need a little bit of energy recharge. She needs around, I think it's like 180, 200-ish is where I try to have her built, and she does have that now. I was trying to get her weapon, failed, and I do have her on Noblest Obliged set as well. She's a fantastic character at talent level 9 and 8. Cryo res down, Fizz res down, and then this is really the mainstay for how she's buffing up these cryo characters. A lot of people might still feel like oh, the stacks fall off too soon, she's too hard to use. There's a lot of stuff that you can do with this character, and she's well worth investing in, the little bit to invest into her if you're a Cryo fan. Now, moving into Cryo fan stuff, Ganyu, oh man, Ganyu. Now, Ganyu's always been a powerful character, and I did catch a lot of flack because I think I made a video saying that her constellations specifically, I think a lot of people missed that her constellations were whale bait on that video. They thought I was talking about the character herself, even though I led with, hey, have you seen this giant multiplier on her? Did you see the giant charge attack multiplier? See how high that is? Oh man, it's crazy good. Even at C0, she's gonna be doing a lot of damage. But the constellation itself, I call whale bait because they sort of build on themselves, and it sort of all comes together at Constellation 6. And you turn this character from someone who just does this thing over and over, where you're like, oh, I'm shooting my charge shot attacks. This feels really good. You incorporate the little animation cancel that you can do with the aim mode to shoot slightly faster charge shot attacks. And then once you have the insta charge shot attacks, when you use your elemental skill, you can start doing crazy stuff with her where you just are boom, bop, boom, boom, bop, boom, bop. And she can play like a quick swap character where you swap her in, drop some flowers, drop some bloom damages everywhere with her Frost Flake arrow, swap back into Shenhe, do a bunch of cool stuff. I have a Shatter Bloom team that utilizes Ganyu using this sort of C6 constellation stuff. And the reason why I was like, these constellations are well bait is because that specific sort of play style for this character is locked entirely behind constellations, which is something I don't as a player really like, or sort of I'm okay with, where a character can play an entirely different way if you have all of their constellations. That's just my viewpoint on it though, but I've always been against that sort of thing. Never called her a bad character, and she's definitely still a fantastic one as long as you enjoy the playstyle of said character. Now, we have moving in to Venti Boy, one of the original ones, and he's kind of fallen off. The original Archon was sort of done some injustice by MiHoYo because they've made so many different enemies in Genshin Impact since Inazuma. Just, you can't pick him up with his elemental burst. It's just not as fun. It's not as cool. And when you have a character like Venti, who is still incredibly powerful in a lot of situations, if there are characters that you can just sort of vacuum up, he's crazy. He's absolutely crazy good. But that little small thing does hurt him a little bit compared to what he used to be able to do when nothing could stand up to the Wind Grand Ode over here, swooping everyone up. Abyss turned easy mode when Venti was around during 1.0, 1 point whatever era. Still a fantastic character, but I would probably rate Kazuha to be a much better character for a lot of teams in Genshin Impact at this point. But he's still around. I love him. Still use him in my Cryo Freeze team, as you can see here. Now, we also, the last part of the Cryo Freeze team here, listen, look at this. Look at this Mona. This isn't the traditional Mona. I have moved my Mona into a support healing Mona. I just want her in there for freeze teams. I want her to be able to apply her elemental burst. I want her to be able to get this extra bonus damage to enemies and this sort of omen duration, which is the thing that gives you bonus damage. If you don't know, this freezes the timer when enemies are frozen. So she's very good in freeze teams for this reason. And also because freeze teams, while they freeze enemies, you don't have a lot of incoming damage, but sometimes you do take damage. So we moved around to the prototype Amber sort of support build here with Ocean Hued Clam and some Emblem of Severed Fate for energy regeneration. And every time I use this R5 prototype Amber, which you can do just by crafting multiples of them, she's healing the entire party for about a quarter of their health, which is going to happen around every 15 seconds. So as long as you're not taking more than a quarter of your entire party's health every 15 seconds, she can sustain a freeze team all by herself while giving you a bunch of bonus damage, and I really like this build. Now, Albedo's a character that I don't use that much anymore. He was one of my original C6 characters, I want to say, because yes, he is Constellation 6. I love to use his flower, but man, so many big enemies nowadays, they just blow up geo constructs. He becomes a pain in the butt to use. and I absolutely hate it. I also like using this flower to just sort of ride up and, you know, jump on guys every once in a while. We had the constellation, I think it's 5, 3, 2, 1. Which constellation is it? Here it is, C4, the plunging attack 30%. It's not that big of a deal. It's cool, it's fine, it's whatever. He is also gated by a lot of power if you don't have access to the Cinnabar Spindle, because it's an event item. So if you weren't there to get it, this thing doesn't exist anymore. He's still a fantastic character. I probably should try him out a little bit more nowadays. Maybe try him in a Bloom team or something, because he does have access to, you know, this second ascension here, which is Elemental Mastery. He's an Elemental Mastery buffer for 10 seconds every time he uses Elemental Burst, which has a 12-second cooldown. So you just pop this bad boy out, and I want to try him in some sort of team where he's just there for damage. It's not really a geo-focused team, maybe some sort of elemental reaction focused team, and he can come in there and hopefully not apply too much geo so he messes with reactions, but he does some damage off the field and then gives everyone elemental mastery. That's something I want to try out with Albedo, but haven't been doing that recently. Zhongli, Daddy Zhongli is another character, as you can see, still a fantastic character. I just don't use him that much recently because I've been trying out other options like Layla, which is a character we'll get to in a little bit here. But Zhongli is still a fantastic guy with his Dominus Lapidus, Jade Shield. Listen, 20% resistant shred to physical and all resistances. That's fantastic. Do you want to be invincible? I don't mean feel invincible. Do you want to be invincible? You have this there. Then we also have Planet Befall, which was a game breaker when it first came out because you just fully petrify enemies. It's like they're frozen, but better for a long duration here. And he was Constellation 0 for a long time. Didn't need much more than that. Shield bot on the Black Tassel. All of his artifacts, I think, have been stolen by Layla. So we'll talk about Layla when we get to her there. Now, one of the mainstays I had used for a long time, and I really invested in this character because I was hoping that they'd come out with some sort of end game co-op experience where dropping a giant elemental burst would be like raid boss damage, right? But the thing is with C6 Eula, is just all of her damage comes from her elemental burst. And you can utilize this in certain abyss floors when it's available to just absolutely take something out. But outside of that specific niche where she just comes in and drops a giant thing for, I don't know, like 1,000,000 damage, I think. We'll check out my highest damage. It's from her in one hit. And it's not some gimmicky, I fought a monster and broke it like the Pyro Regisvine and dropped Bennett ult and all this other stuff. No, it just happened like in the abyss and it was over 1,000,000 damage. Eula's just a wacky, crazy character. But outside of that big burst damage, she doesn't really do a whole lot. And I actually find her pretty weak outside of trying to one-shot things with her elemental burst. I used her in one of the new events, the Brew event, in a physical floor, and it was my lowest scoring floor in my lowest scoring team by a wide margin, simply because, well, when the event is, you need to deal with a bunch of tiny things. One-shotting something every couple of elemental bursts isn't that big of a deal. On a 20-second cooldown, your actual DPS for this is pretty low if you're overkilling everything with it. So maybe that's why they haven't brought her back yet, because I feel like she might not have a traditional spot in the kind of content that they bring out in Genshin, or maybe they're just too worried of someone coming in with a C6 Eula and one-shotting a raid boss that we'll probably never get because it'll probably HP lock or have 15 phases. I'm not sure. I don't know what fantasy I was living in when I pulled the wallet out for this, but it's this is kind of how I feel about it. Now, a character I don't really use that much recently either is Yae Miko. Not saying that she's bad. She's very, very strong. I just haven't been playing with her recently. She's gotten better since Dendro came out and aggravate and spread teams. She's super cool that way. The one thing that I don't like though is how sort of clunky her elemental skill can feel at times, but it is a little bit better because you can dash or attack right after you do the dash with the elemental skill itself. So she gets a little bit more uptime, a little bit more electro application in these different Dendro focused teams. And she's gotten a lot better since then. And I do enjoy using her a lot, especially in the AFK team, I call it, where I just put down a bunch of these different Sessho Sakuras and just kind of just kind of let everything get destroyed. I just fall asleep with Layla in her sleeping animation, and they just kind of zap everything with dendro and hydro applications going everywhere. And it makes for a great thumbnail for a YouTube video. It makes for a great highlight reel. I love it all the time. Now, Raiden Shogun is probably still to this day one of my most used characters, and one of the characters I invested the most in as well, even though, well, artifact selection, man, it's so hard to get perfect stuff for this girl because she wants like every stat in the game, especially when you have a big engulfing lightning. So we got to C4 on Raiden Shogun for the extra attack bonus. This was a mistake. I wanted to end at C3, but C2 with the 60% defense ignore takes her from someone who's pretty darn good and very good still in a lot of team compositions to the you can make an entire team based around Raiden Shogun, the hyper carry Raiden Shogun team, and absolutely dominate things. So I love Raiden Shogun. I use her in so many things, got even better with Hyper Bloom and Dendro being added to the game. And you can also utilize her in a full elemental mastery build now because of the addition of Dendro. So now she's got 2 different playstyles, and I would put her as one of the characters in the top 5 to gain access to on your account, just so you can have all the different sort of playstyles with Raiden Shogun, whether you make her your carry or your support or you build her EM. She's so flexible and fun to use that I would definitely place her in the top 5 most Genshin characters of all Genshin time. And speaking of most Genshin characters of all Genshin time, Nahida is a fantastically broken character. If you haven't checked out some of the previous videos, she is also in the top 5. Like, if you're a free-to-play player, I would probably try to pick this character up. Do you absolutely need her? No, but you can make that for any character. You can make that affirmation for any character in Genshin Impact. You don't need anyone. The game's an easy adventure game outside of the Abyss. Just go do whatever you want. But there's so many playstyles that you can use Nahida in, just like with Raiden Shogun. Solo Dendro dealer, main focus damage dealer, support damage dealer, elemental mastery buffer, all schemes to know, applying all the Dendro in the world, so you don't have to worry about knowing all the different internal cooldowns in the game. And really, she just makes the game easier to play, and she's very easy to build. You just put crit chance, crit damage, elemental mastery on her. Don't need that much energy recharge, like a 130-ish is enough. So she's a fantastic character, and she doesn't need that much investment. Slap the Wood Sith on her, go to town, be fine with it. Put the Deep Wood memory set on her if you're going to use her as your main sort of Dendro character in a lot of these parties, and you're going to have a good time with this character. She just kind of plays herself. You take little screenshots. You don't have to climb all the things in the world mountain-wise and to get all the flowers in the open world. She's just too good. She's just too good to pass up. Yelan is another character that I just don't I can't not use her. I always use her. World exploration. Listen, this elemental skill, lingering lifeline, flying around everywhere, works with movement speed buffs. If you have a Constellation 1 for it, you get a second charge with her. You can explore so much of the map in new areas. If you're looking to 100% complete all the different regions, Yelan's probably in your party. You're probably running like double Animo, Yelan, run for the moon. One of your animals probably saw you, so you're just going. It's a fantastic character to have access to strictly for exploration. But on top of that, she's also one of the best support damage dealers in the game because Dendro got added to the game. So now she's a Hydro character, one of the best elements, if not the best element in the game. Works good with Vaporized teams, works good with Dendro focused teams, works good with weird stuff that I like to use with Noelle, because Adapt with Ease can buff up the damage of whatever your active character is during the duration of her elemental burst. She's also pretty easy to build as an HP scaler, works with a newly reworked Hydra Resonance. I guess I shouldn't say newly, that happened a while ago, but she's just so good to use. She's like a second version of Xingqiu. And we already know how good Xingqiu is being, well, a Hydro applicator. She's just fantastic. I can't say enough about her. And one of the teams I've been using her with the most is with Hu Tao. Now, Hu Tao is a character that every time I talk about her, everyone's saying, man, she's washed up. Hu Tao's washed up. Hu Tao's washed up. She's only single target damage. If you want to do big single target damage, this character is a wacky little menace. A wacky little menace Hu Tao is, especially if you have access to at least one copy of Staff of Homa for her. Run her in double Hydro. If you have access to Yelan and she just becomes a monstrosity, you don't have access to Yelan, that's fine. Just run her with Xingqiu. It's just too good. It's too dumb. It's too easy to play. There's an animation cancel with the dashes and the jumps, but honestly, it's not that hard to figure out. You just do a charge attack and dash, or do a charge attack and jump. You got it. Not hard to play at all. And she's one of the original Genshin Impact sort of most wanted characters. I remember her being really popular and wanted when she first came out. And it seems like every single time they rerun her banner, she gets hyped back up again, which is why I see so many comments of her being washed up. You got to have those naysayers out there. People just want to have fun with her Hu Tao. People are like, no.
No, I won't allow that. She's not good enough. No, Dendro's too strong. She's washed up.
She is still fun to play. Now, if you're using a normal attack focused character, like we talked about with Noelle, Yunjin's fantastic. Get the Opulent Dream set on her. Just run everything defense %. If you want to try some crit chance a little bit there, just for the Favonius Lance proc, but just defense, 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 defense is the name of the game on this character. Buff up everyone's normal attacks into the moon. I want to use her with Haizao. I think I'm leveling up right now. Haven't used him much until recently, but I want to level up Haizao a little bit more and use Yunjin with him there, because that's going to be a very fun team to use with Yunjin, as well as I think Jean itself. So we're gonna have a lot of Jeans in that team. Ningguang's a fantastic character, has sadly sort of fallen off a little bit with all these different reaction damage focused sort of Genshin Impact teams. Geo itself has sort of fallen off that way, and it might actually be time for a little bit of a Geo rework. As you can see, they didn't really release a Geo character after Arataki Ito, so that might be a thing there. But I did make a pretty recent video on her where we made her very, very powerful utilizing the Shimenawa's Reminiscence set, Yunjin as well, because if you have access to the first constellation here, Piercing Fragments, your normal attacks all do AoE damage, and this will factor in Yunjin's buff for every single enemy hit by the AoE damage from your normal attacks. And then obviously, as she is a catalyst character, you can animation cancel just by holding like forward or left as you attack. And her normal attack actually will shoot 2 rocks here, even though this is a 47% damage multiplier, which is pretty low. You do get 2 rocks each time you shoot this off, which will use up 2 Yunjin buffs, so it's very easy to get through all of Yunjin's trigger quotas. But both these rocks will get Yunjin buffs, and then if those rocks do AoE damage, they'll just go through Yunjin's buff really, really, really fast, so there's no sort of loss on the trigger quotas of the 30 that Yunjin can give you. Ningguang can eat through those very, very, very fast and do a bunch of damage. I think I did use it with Venti a while ago. It's not in the recent video, but if you haven't seen Venti swirl everything up into the air and then your Yunjin Ningguang combo, just sort of do normal attacks into the air and just see them all hit 30,000 damage AoE twice per normal attack. It's pretty fun to scoop up an entire abyss floor and just, and it's all gone. It's all gone because Ningguang. All right. It's pretty fun. It's pretty fun to use. If you haven't seen that video, check that one out. Now, Layla's a character that gets slept on, and I didn't mean to make a pun, but I love Layla. Now, the thing that I love about Layla the most is the thing that I hate about Zhongli the most. With Zhongli, when you go to utilize his very broken Dominus Lapidus shield, it's the holds version that applies the shield. And this is a very nuanced thing, and it's like the biggest first world complaint ever. But the whole like 1 second animation of him just standing there, realizing that he's got to put his shield down. He's literally standing here, I realize, puts the shield down. I hate that so much. With Layla though, you just tap it, boom, shield's instant on. We love to see it. 12-second duration, 12-second cooldown. Build her for a bunch of HP. That's a good thing there. Give her a little bit of energy recharge. She's going to be applying cryo as well, so you can put her in a freeze team. She has cryo application from her elemental skill. She has cryo application from her elemental burst. And before someone says that, no, the skill itself doesn't apply cryo. It's still little shooting stars afterwards. Okay, fine. I think you understood it. But she's super cool. I mean, just build her for health. She's going to have a lot of fun protecting your team. And the reason why I don't use Zhongli so much anymore is because I use her instead. And I usually use her in a Hu Tao team with double Hydro, We have vaporizes, and then we have freezes, which turn into melts, and all the time that she is there with the giant shield protecting the Hu Tao, it's a good time. Now, Kuki Shinobu, I just made a video on, so you should probably just go check that one out instead. But this character is probably one of my most used characters right now, just because it's so busted. It's so busted that you just activate Sanctifying Ring. Yes, you'll take some damage. It's fine. Costs 30% of your health. You're going to heal back some as well over time. If you want to make it a little bit easier for you, make sure you use your elemental burst after you use your elemental skill, because while you're invincible during that short burst animation, you're going to get a tick or two off of the ring, and then you do a dash, which is going to give you some invincibility frames. That'll give you another tick. So it's pretty easy to make up for the activation cost of losing your HP there. But on top of that, you just throw her in a different Dendro focused team, whether it's an aggravate build for Kuki Shinobu or an all EM build for Kuki Shinobu. Get her to like 900 elemental mastery. Try to get her to like, 700 if you're brand new, but once you can get her to like 800, 900, 1000 elemental mastery, she starts hitting for 30,000, 35,000 hyper blooms. And it's just absolutely busted to just walk around, have everyone do damage, and you get free more damage from your healer everywhere. It's dumb. It's very dumb. Now, Kujou, Sara, and Beidou, I haven't used that much anymore. Kujou, Sara, I will use if I'm doing a Hyper Raiden team, which I don't do that much anymore. But if I want to go have fun with Raiden Shogun or any other hyper invested sort of main carry electro character, Kujou Sara is there because she is C6, so we have attack buff, we have crit damage buff, and she also is built to do a fair amount of damage herself. Nothing broken, but we do have 81 crit as well as 148 crit damage there because we're using an R5 Skyward Harp. 22 crit chance, 40 crit damage, high base attack. We love to see it on Kujou Sara there. If you haven't seen the Kuki video, then you haven't seen this Candace build, but I have two builds for Candace. This one right now is she's just wearing Instructor set to be a way to allow someone else to apply Hydro. She also can apply it with her Elemental Burst, either through the infusion that we just talked about, or a lot of people forget that you get 3 different pulses of Hydro after activating this when you swap your characters. And that Hydro application does not follow internal cooldowns. It doesn't have one. So you get 3 non-internal cooldown Hydro applications there, which is pretty fun. And that's another way to make sure you bloom more and hyper bloom more and just do a bunch of cool stuff. The other build I use her with is actually on Kuki Shinobu's artifact sets, and we'll be making a video on this pretty shortly. And it's a Shatter Bloom Candace, which is basically just a bloom team, but it's like a fridge team. But Candace can shatter by hitting things with her shield, either with the second hit of her normal attack string or with her elemental skill here that kind of shield bashes people. And that will actually shatter them. We have like 20,000, 25,000 damage shatters on top of our, 40,000 damage blooms. And it's a good amount of fun to have access to. Xingqiu, we're not going to touch much on this guy. Sack Sword, Severed Fate, get in there. Amazing character. Reduction in damage from his rain swords, healing from his rain swords, damage from his rain swords, bonus damage from his rain swords, Hydro resist down from his rain swords. This character does everything in Genshin Impact and was probably the most slept on character for a while as everyone was trying to figure out exactly how the elemental reaction system worked and why it seemed like players who are using Xingqiu were doing pretty good after the Abyss first rotated. Now, one of the other reasons that he got slept on a little bit was during the first Abyss rotation, well, like everything had a cryo shield, like cryo Abyss mages, cryo slimes, cryo this, cryo that, and you try to use Xingqiu and you just get frozen a bunch, and it looked really bad, and then it wasn't very fun. But after that sort of rotated, people were able to use him as a sort of vaporized enabler. He just went off to the moon. Bennett, we're not talking about you, it's fine, but this character here as well, given a little bit of new life. I have been working on this character. Xinyan is fantastic. For one thing and one thing only, I've been using her in a version team, so TLDR. Wait for that to come out. I'm working on a bunch of stuff all at the same time, even though I shouldn't be, because I'm also trying to wait for Honkai Star Rail to come out. I don't know, I have a lot of stuff going on, but this also is going to be using the same artifacts that the Kuki Shinobu build does. That's why she's not geared right now on anything that's spectacular, But I do get to use her on a very cool looking weapon, which is the blood tainted greatsword. A little sneak peek there. Look how good this looks, by the way. It's like they were made for each other, but big burgeon damage, a little bit of defense there, a little bit of elemental mastery. Get the shield up, it'll pulse a little bit, get some rift revolutions going, that'll apply some pyro damage as well. You just get a lot of burgeon damage coming out. So you get the real rockstar flair with her and a burgeon team. Lots of explosions. It feels like a cutscene. You gotta give a little bit of love to Xinyan. That's the great thing about Genshin Impact, is that if you have some of the artifacts laying around, and that's something you shouldn't shoot for until you're very well vested in the game, level your characters first. There's just a lot of things you can experiment with eventually. And that's what I've been doing recently, is experimenting more. And hopefully I'll be able to come out with some cool new stuff like attack speed of Haizao, that's normal attack focused. I have him at like 40% something movement speed and 40% attack speed. He's like the Iron Fist. He just kind of dashes around. You'd give Ali a little bit of run for his money with that build, but I have to finish leveling him up. Let me know what your characters that you've been using the most is in Genshin, the ones for fun or just for power level reasons, and I'll see you guys in the next one.